Hello and welcome back to Tears Apart, a podcast from England's football city. In today's episode, we'll be reviewing Manchester City's 3-0 win over Nottingham Forest as they finally ended their winless run, as well as touching on United's 2-0 defeat away at Arsenal before coming on to this weekend's fixtures as City go to the capital to take on Crystal Palace, while United welcome Forest to Old Trafford. Speaking of Forest, we'll start with that City game coming into it, 7 games without a win on the back of that 2-0 defeat at Anfield. This was a game where, coming into this game, Forest obviously had a very good start to the season, one of the surprise packages in the Premier League this season. This was not an easy task for City on paper, given their form and just given the entire lack of confidence around the club at that point. So this really was a must-win game. I don't think many City fans were confident of getting that win, but they did so, and they did so in style. Kevin de Bruyne was particularly influential with a goal and assist. Jeremy Doku also produced that same return as the Belgians both combined to great effect for a 3-0 win for City, which puts them back within contention for the title. The gap being now 9 points between them and Liverpool. Dan, what do you think of that win for City? Big, is it a potential turning point now?
Yeah, it's massive going forwards, really, isn't it? You think the amount of, like you say, was it 6 winless games, I believe it was,
7 in the end. I think
seven in
six
the end.
domestically, maybe.
Yeah, and for them to get that win yesterday, I just think it's so big because Forest are a great side, and I know they beat Ipswich Town 1-0 last time out, but they have beaten Liverpool at Anfield, and that's one of the hardest grounds you can go to, and for
I
them
think
to
they got
do
a point
that,
at Chelsea as well.
yeah, I think it was 1-0, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So they're definitely a team, and like you said in sort of the intro when you were introducing them, they're a brilliant team, and you can't. I think no one was going into that game thinking that it was going to be an easy game for City by any means from the past couple of games, especially. But it felt like some rhythm was getting back into the play, and defensively, I mean, keeping a clean sheet, that's also massive.
Yeah, that was City's first clean sheet since the last time they picked up a win at the end of October against Southampton. Stefan Ortega didn't, he had to work for it as well. He made a couple of very impressive saves as he continues to stake a claim for a starting spot. But I think rightfully so, all the headlines will go to Kevin de Bruyne, all the plaudits will go his way. Um, I think there's an interesting point to be made about Kevin De Bruyne. There's a lot of questions. He's got 12 months, well, 9 months left in his deal, or whatever it is now, 8 months left. And he's aging, he's struggling to stay fit. A lot of question marks around him, and is he starting to come to the end of this great prime that he's had in the Premier League for City? But I saw a stat yesterday actually that the difference between City with De Bruyne and without De Bruyne. They've won all 5 games this season in which De Bruyne has started, in the league at least. And otherwise, we've seen the consequences. So I think I think it's not that just shows you that it's not just Rodri. I think De Bruyne, because I think I've alluded to this in the past. Rodri was almost like a creator for City last season. He was everything in De Bruyne's absence. So I think having De Bruyne back relieves that burden slightly that Rodri leaves. And I think he showed it against Forest with a magnificent performance. The way he took that goal, his awareness to assist Bernardo as well with the opener. I think he's a joy to watch, and he's reminded everyone what he's capable of. So I think having him back, if he can string a few starts together now, I think that's going to be huge, especially if Foden continues to miss out, whether through injury or illness, whatever he's got got going on. Having
Yeah.
De Bruyne in that higher advanced midfield role is a huge boost for City. And to pair him alongside Jack Grealish was an interesting decision from Pep Guardiola, but one that some fans have been calling for quite a while now, calling for since his arrival at City, really. He's only been deployed on that left wing role, where you see a lot of versatility in the City squad. A lot of players operate in different roles. Jack Grealish, one who should have been moved into the middle a long time ago. Do you think, Dan?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Villa got the best out of him playing him centrally, and I still think Phil Foden's better centrally as well. That could be up for debate, of course, but
Mm.
I still think that Grealish, his main position is in the centre of midfield, and it seems stupid to say that when for the treble season he played on the left wing virtually, didn't he? Because Pep wants to control the game obviously a bit more. So when he does take that gamble, playing Doku on the left and maybe Savinho, who might not track back and might not keep the ball as much as he would like City to, I feel like Grealish in midfield, I wouldn't say it's going to be revolutionary, but it's definitely someone to help De Bruyne out and Gundogan because we know that Grealish will track back.
Yeah, I was going to come on to that. I think that's a big point about Grealish playing in that middle, in the middle of the park. His ability to track back. I've seen so many times throughout the years clips of Grealish jogging all the way back to prevent a goal with a block, and you don't get a lot of that from other forward players. I think that's probably played in part of Pep's thinking, and I think in a spell where City's midfield has been non-existent really, for lack of a better word. Gundogan's aging, as is Kovacic. Really, they're not exactly these players in their physical pomp, as it were. And they need extra legs in the midfield, and Grealish can provide that. And the defense needs all the help it can get right now because it's been struggling a lot recently. But the defense, I did think in that 3-0 win over Forest did look very good, and that was for me, along with Grealish playing in midfield, that was also due to Pep returning to the four centre back system, which we linked to the treble season there. That was also what he did in the Champions League final. Played four centre backs with a Kanji on the right, Ake and Diaz, probably City's two most solid defenders right now based on current form. And then Josko Gvardiol, who's still a little bit out of sorts. He could have had two goals himself on the left, but I thought that defense was very, very good. And if that defense was to keep playing the next few games, then I'd be confident of City picking up a few more wins. However, Manuel Akanji did come off the pitch at half time. Pep didn't really explain much about that, but he did say that Nathan Ake's injury, which he sustained later in the game, isn't looking good. So there's still plenty of room for more winless games for City, it would seem. Maybe more time for Jemai Simpson-Pusey on the pitch as John Stones continues to battle injuries as he does always. Uh, Dan, so you've got a tough few. Well, you've got a bit of a mixture of games coming up in terms of difficulty. Do you think City can build on this now on this win?
You would think so, but they've got a really tough sort of winter games that are coming up, really. You think about Crystal Palace this weekend, which we'll touch upon very soon. That City's sort of bogey game sometimes away at Selhurst Park. You don't know quite what you're going to get, although they did perform very well last season. Then Juventus in the Champions League away. Always tough to go to Juventus, no matter what side they are, even though they're not the Juve that they used to be. And of course, the derby next week, the big one. It's massive for Terra's apart, of course. That's going to be a very, very tough game as well. You think about how defensively sound United were in that first half against Arsenal, and we know City's weakness is having pace on the break against them, which United have showed in past derbies before as well. So it's going to be a mixture. Plus Villa after that away, that's going to be a very tough game. And then I would say Everton would be a tough game, but I think we know what's going to happen on Boxing Day. And then after that, it
They just won
seems
4-0.
I suppose that was against Wolves though. Um, but the games after that, it sort of gets a little bit more calmer for City, and you expect results. And maybe that 14 game unbeaten run, 16 game unbeaten run, like many people talk about, to come into action. Leicester City, West Ham, Salford City in the FA Cup, Brentford, Ipswich Town, and then a big game away at the Parc des Princes against PSG. So those are some critical games that City, the points that they have lost in the past 7 games or so, can pick up after, well, it will be, yeah, just after Christmas. So it's a big time for City. And if they want to get anywhere near the title this season, those are the games, as we know, that you need to get points.
Yeah, I think having De Bruyne back and some of the players hitting that form like Grealish, Doku, etc. If the defense can maintain that form, then uh, certainly could be room for one of City's famous
It's
post-Christmas streaks. But I think they've got a lot to prove that this wasn't just a flash in the pan this win, that they are ready to turn this spell around and get the season back on track.
it's gone quite quiet, really, hasn't it? City's transfer talk, because I think the Zubimendi one, when Rodri was injured, that came to the forefront. And then is it Ricky from Torino that you mentioned as well?
Mm,
And then Edison from Atalanta. Nothing seems to be concrete at the moment. Is there any
no.
other thing that could be happening in January that you know of?
There's been more whispers just today actually about Bruno Guimaraes, but I personally don't see him leaving in January at least. So yeah, one to keep an eye on for January deals, but I think, like I mentioned in previous episode, I think City will be forced to act in the market, even though it's something we don't usually do, uh, because this spell of form has been pretty disastrous and it's highlighted some very glaring weaknesses in the side, or at least in the squad building. So I think hopefully cheeky Begiristain can bow out with a strong, influential window. But that's enough talk for City for now. We'll move on to United. They didn't quite enjoy as much. Yeah, they didn't quite enjoy themselves as much in the midweek fixture away at Arsenal. Obviously, a tough game at the Emirates. A 2-0 defeat in which the first half was very, very lacking in quality. Two goals from Arsenal in the second half, both from set pieces, I believe. Um, they get the Gunners the 3 points, and Ruben Amorim takes defeat for the first time as United manager. Dan, what are your overall thoughts on that performance from United?
You spoke about it then. The Emirates for United is a really tough game. I think the last win was in 2017. So
Jesse
it's,
Lingard, that's the first thing I pictured when I thought of United at the Emirates. You know, when he
yeah,
danced.
yeah, the 3-1 because he did the Millie Rock, didn't he? And then
Yeah,
he
in
did
the black kit.
was it the Michael Jackson? I think
Can't remember.
he did that as well. That was another one, I think. But yeah, it's always been it's a tough game, and the Emirates is a tough place to go to, like I say, for United. But I'm not going to call them set piece FC like many people have done. Arsenal, I think, deserve the win. United really, really struggled to turn up in the game, I thought, attacking wise. I feel like defensively in that first half, good, they kept a good structure to keep Arsenal out. And when they were going forwards, obviously with Saka, who got sort of contained by Mazraoui and Malacia on that side, Martinelli had a little bit of luck against Delo, and then not too much of Havertz in that first half. Like I say, United did the defensive duties very well, but what cost them is when they went forwards, they had nothing going forwards. That's the difference because Mason Mount, it probably wasn't the game for him to go into, if you think about it, because Rashford and Xerxes had just both scored a brace at the weekend each. And then Amarin goes up with the front three of Hoyland, Garnacho, and Mount. And I can see the reasons why he's put Mount in because he's pressing and maybe he would have liked to go and press Arsenal a little bit. But we know that you can't do that against this Arsenal team. They're very, very good at passing, as we saw in the second half. And United got punished because although Arsenal have scored about 22 corners since the end of last season, I think, or set pieces, which is the most in the league. United should and would have been wary about that, but they didn't attack the Arsenal players in the air like they knew they weren't not a threat, which was very, very weird because Arsenal are known for the set pieces. And the FA Cup in January, it'll be January the 11th. That'll be very telling to see how far this United team would have come since then. But for me, going forwards, United just didn't really offer anything. And that second half, Arsenal found out Amarin's system because Arteta studied it so well when he has been beaten by Amarin in the past in the Champions League with Sporting. And they used that to good effect. And I think Havertz probably could have scored after, I think it was the first goal. And I think Rice had a great opportunity as well. So and you look at that Arsenal back line as well, Timber, Saliba, Kyrgios, and
Wasn't the
Zinchenko.
strongest.
No, and that's the thing. You would think that Rashford always has quite a good game against Arsenal. Like I say, he's come off some really good form recently. So you would think he might start him in that game. But in his post-match press conference, Ruben Amorim did talk about how he needed to rest players, only having, 2 days in between. Arsenal had an extra day as well. But I thought for that back line of Arsenal, United could have done a lot better going forwards. And like I say, nothing went forwards for United and they got punished and Arsenal deserved winners really.
Yeah, it's I mean, I think with Amorim's 3-4-2-1 system, 3-4-3, there was question marks originally when he first came in about how defensively sound that would be in the Premier League. But I think, like you mentioned, I think that probably even with Mazraoui as a centre back, that they kind of showed that they can be solid, and it only took two set pieces for them to be undone. That Saliba one was that did just
Mm.
deflect off his back, didn't it, as well? So I think it wasn't like a a battering like people might expect, given the difference in quality of sides right now. But yeah, I think there's like you say, there's a lot of work to be done for United. I think, like you say, particularly going forward, maybe it's a case of Amorim trying to find the right players to suit that front three. But one part I'd be interested to get your thoughts on. Bruno Fernandes started in a deeper role as more of an eight. He made a couple of good challenges. I did I recall as well. Do you think he's got the tools to play in that deeper role, or do you think he's a bit nullified his effects really?
Well, this has been the question since Amorim's come in. Where does Bruno Fernandes fit into United and this team? Because he's played as a 10, just off the striker, and obviously now he's coming into playing a little bit deeper next to Agate. So I think Amorim's trying to find the best position to put Bruno Fernandes in. The question is, though, where does Kobe Mainoo fit into this team? Because he's a brilliant talent, and it would be a shame not to have him in the starting 11. And I think Agate is nailed on. Um, Obviously, playing under Amorim at Sporting, so he's going to be that sort of deeper midfield out of both of the two. So I'm not saying Bruno's position's up for grabs, but you could say it is because you think Rashford's performing at the moment. Garnacho's hit a spell of not good form recently. So on current form, you think it would be as the two tens, Rashford and Bruno Fernandes. Now, whether Amorim will do that, I'm not too sure, but I do think it depends on the game because he needed some energy in midfield against Arsenal because they have got a lot of willing runners. I think that we always, I know we take the Vic out of that phrase, but they have got a lot of runners in midfield who will bypass your midfield easily. So they did need two highly energetic midfielders, which they got in Fernandes and Agate, and then Mount obviously as well and Garnacho. They're good at tracking back. I'm not saying Madu wouldn't be good at tracking back because he has done for most of last season, but especially when getting the ball and Arsenal are pressing you, Bruno would. I can see why Amarin's put him in because Bruno would be that player who would get the ball, turn, and play it forwards. But like I say, it just didn't turn out like that for United. And where Bruno's future is in this team, it's very uncertain at the moment. But he does need to improve his performances. That's one thing I will say.
We also saw Lenny Yoro come on for his United debut. Uh, what do you make of him? He did from what I saw, a bit of a mixed bag, like for a couple of good things, a couple of bad things. You think probably
Yeah.
pretty par debut?
I thought he was very good considering he's making his Premier League debut,
And
virtually
he's so
coming off
young
the
as
bench
well.
against Arsenal. Yeah, being thrown into the deep end. I thought against Trossard, he did very, very well. I think there was two scenarios where Trossard got the ball. He was 1v1 against Yoro on that left side, and Yoro just took his time and just assessed what Trossard was going to do very well. And because he's got such long legs and he's lean, even if someone gets past him, it's a bit like Wan-Bissaka. He can just get a tackle in just there. I saw a tweet the other day and they were saying that he's got the legs of Wan-Bissaka but the mind of Varane, and I thought that hit the nail on the head. And I think Yoro is going to be very important for United going forwards because you'd think now. I know Maguire started against Arsenal coming back from injury. That back three currently, I think Yoro could give De Ligt or Martinez a bit of a headache. Now, whether he starts Yoro against Forest, I'm not too sure because of the Chris Wood and Anthony Elanga and Silva effect up front. But that would probably be the game to do it because Yoro is very, very quick. And De Ligt, sometimes this season, you can tell that his pace from a couple of years ago isn't there as much. So he does need two quick centre halves beside him. Whether that's Yoro and Martinez, Mazraoui and Yoro, or Martinez, that's for Amarin to decide, of course. But from what I've seen from him being thrown in at the deep end against Arsenal, he did very, very well.
Do you think do you think we're closer to knowing how Amorim will line up in terms of on the left hand side as at the left wing back position? Tyrell Malacia started again. Obviously, Luke Shaw still injured. We've seen Dallo out there, haven't we, as well? So, how do you think
Yeah.
Malacia's given Amorim anything to consider with that performance?
Possibly. I'll just go to Shaw first, actually, because I think he's so unlucky. We know what Luke Shaw's injuries record has been like
Bit
over the
like
past
John
couple of
Stones.
seasons. Yeah. And for him to just come back against Ipswich and be fit, and he's made some cameos coming off the bench recently as well against Bodo Glimt. I just thought it was so really harsh on him because you can see he's trying to get back. He looks a lot leaner. Amorim said that himself. He sure looks a lot leaner, and he looks like he could be that left centre back if Amorim did need him as a replacement or starter, depending on form, of course. But I just feel really, really sorry for him because it's a muscle injury. He's going to be out for a few weeks. But Amorim wants him to stay around. That's the main thing. He's going to work with these players and see what he can do and get the most out of them. But going back to your question, I think that I wouldn't say it's like set on at the moment, but I would say Nusayr Mazraoui is making a really, really big case for himself this season on that sort of left centre half place as well. I spoke about how Malacia and Mazraoui contained Saka in that first half very well, and even in the second half as well, to a point. I know Malacia came off, and Ahmad came on and Dolo swapped, but I said it from the start when Amarin came in. I feel like Malacia is that left wing back type of player. I could see him in like an Alonso system. When he played for Feyenoord, he was very much up and down the line. So I think he has got the capabilities of playing in a left wing back role. And that's the thing with Malacia. He's only, I think, 22, 23. So he's got quite a couple of years before you could call his peak, whatever it could be. But he's definitely got time, and I think that's the thing with this United team. They've got a lot of young players starting to come through, with some experienced players in there as well. It's getting that right mix. But that left side, it's not set on, but you can see sort of the candidates that would be there in the future, and especially in the next couple of games, which is vital.
Yeah, we'll come on to United's next game, which is Nottingham Forest at home. Obviously, under Amorim, 2 wins from two at Old Trafford for the new boss. Some big games on the horizon, including the derby, like you mentioned, Spurs in the cup, Arsenal in the cup, Liverpool in the league, all around the turn of the year. Uh,
Yeah.
this first game against Forest, we touched on their away form. They have just lost 3-0 away at Arsenal and City. You feeling optimistic for this one?
I would say yes, but I feel like Forest, especially this Forest team, can produce anything. What I saw them do against Liverpool at Anfield, it just shows that they do have the capabilities. Obviously, coming off the City game in a 3-0 loss, that will bear on the mind. But I feel like for the past couple of years, many teams think that they can come to Old Trafford and really have a go at United. And this will be a case of United trying to break down Forest, as we saw City against Forest. City had 67% possession. So Amarin's going to have to put some very creative plays out there. I would not be surprised whatsoever if Amad Diallo starts on that right wing back slot, because United need to link play up very, very quickly in order to beat this Forest defence and team. And then you think about the defensively as well. It might even be a case of keeping Maguire in just to contain. I keep using the word contain, but just to contain Chris Wood because he's such a threat going forwards, and he had that great chance which he probably should have buried actually against
Mm.
City. So either Maguire or De Ligt just man mark. So this game is going to be heavily reliant on the creative players in this United squad for them to get a result. And 5:30 at Old Trafford, you expect United to turn up, but how many times have we said that over the years?
Yeah, there's something about this Forest team that makes me think they could easily get a result in this game. But but City this weekend going away to Crystal Palace, 3 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. We mentioned City's poor record against Palace. I will bring up some stats though. Four of the last five times that City have dropped points against Crystal Palace have been at the Etihad. We've seen the Andros Townsend goal, the Conor Gallagher game, the 2-2 draw, the equaliser in the last minute. I think it was Cenk Tosun. And most recently last season, Michael Olise's late, was it a penalty? I think it was a penalty, um, to draw Palace level. So I think Palace have a bit more of a tendency to take points off City at the Etihad, thankfully. But that doesn't mean that Selhurst Park is any easier of a fixture. Last season, City won their 4-2. Kevin de Bruyne had a particularly good game, so he'll be licking his lips at this one. But I do remember the treble season at Selhurst Park. We very, very well, we got we crept past Palace with an Erling Haaland penalty,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly. The year before that was a 0-0 draw where Liverpool had opened up their chances in the title race. So this is Palace v City is a game that can produce anything, but like we mentioned, Palace aren't actually having a great season. They
No.
only just narrowly got over the line against Ipswich themselves this week. So I think City will be. I think now they've got that win under their belt. I think that it's a bit of a mentality thing where now they should be able to believe in themselves again that they can put a string of wins together. And I think Palace away is the type of fixture that a serious City side gets the win in. And I think I personally would back City to get the 3 points. And hopefully, a side note, hopefully Erling Haaland gets his touch back in front of goal. But we'll have to wait and see. It's been a interesting week of football, and I'm sure there's a couple of interesting games to come out the weekend. But until then, we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Leave a review, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Goodbye.